What if one of history's most famous kings never existed at all? What if the hero who united Britain was nothing more than a story, a myth repeated so many times that people accepted it as truth? And yet, what if the legend began with a real man? For centuries, people have argued about King Arthur. Was he a warrior, a ruler, or pure imagination? His name echoes through castles, books, and films, but the deeper we search, the stranger the mystery becomes. Unlike many historical rulers, Arthur left no clear record. No royal signature survives. No official crown has been found. No tomb can be confirmed beyond doubt. Yet somehow everyone knows his story. The sword in the stone, the Knights of the Round Table, the magical wizard named Merlin. The legend feels larger than life, almost too perfect to be true. A king chosen by destiny itself, a hero rising when Britain needed him most. But legends rarely appear from nothing. Most myths begin with a spark, a forgotten event, a real person hidden beneath centuries of storytelling. To understand Arthur, we must travel backward in time, back to a Britain very different from today, a land of uncertainty and violence, a land struggling to survive. The mighty Roman Empire had collapsed. Its soldiers were leaving Britain behind. Cities weakened. Old systems began to crumble. Without Rome's protection, chaos followed. Local rulers fought for power. Communities feared invasion. The future seemed frighteningly uncertain. Across the sea came new threats. Warriors arrived from Germanic tribes. The Saxons pushed deeper into Britain. Conflict spread across the land. People needed a leader, someone strong enough to unite divided groups, someone capable of resisting invasion, someone who could inspire hope. This is where Arthur may enter the story, not necessarily as the king we know today, but perhaps as a warrior, a commander whose victories became legendary. Some historians believe Arthur was real, not a king in shining armor, not a magical hero, but a military leader fighting for survival. Imagine a battlefield covered in fog, steel clashing against steel, exhausted warriors standing their ground, a commander refusing to surrender. If such a man existed, people would remember him. Stories would spread. Victories would grow larger in retelling. Reality would slowly become legend. Generations passed. Details changed. Facts blended with imagination. The man became a symbol. Soon, Arthur was no longer just a warrior. He became the ideal ruler, the perfect king, the hero everyone wished they had. The story kept growing. New characters appeared. New adventures emerged. The legend expanded with every century. Then came Merlin, a mysterious figure linked to magic and prophecy. He transformed Arthur's story forever. History became fantasy. The sword Excalibur followed, not merely a weapon, but a symbol of destiny, a sign that Arthur was chosen. The Round Table appeared next, a powerful idea of equality and honor. No knight sat above another. All served a greater purpose. People loved these stories. They offered hope during difficult times. They celebrated courage and loyalty. They inspired entire generations. But beneath every magical detail, a question remained. Who was Arthur really? Was there a man behind the myth, or only the myth itself? That question has survived for centuries. And strangely enough, nobody has answered it completely. The mystery remains alive today. Perhaps that is why Arthur never truly disappeared. The deeper historians dig into Arthur's story, the more frustrating the mystery becomes. Evidence appears, then disappears. Clues emerge, then contradict one another. Every answer seems to create two new questions. Ancient texts mention battles. Some mention heroic leaders. Others describe victories against invading forces. Yet none provide a complete picture. One of the earliest references comes from writings centuries after Arthur supposedly lived. That delay creates a problem. Memories fade. Stories change. Imagine trying to write someone's biography hundreds of years after their death. How much would remain accurate? How much would become rumor? How much would become legend? This is the challenge facing historians today. They are searching through fragments, broken pieces of a puzzle missing many parts. Some researchers believe Arthur was a Romano-British commander, a leader defending Britain after Rome's withdrawal, a man fighting to hold civilization together, a man history almost forgot. Others argue Arthur never existed at all. According to this theory, he is a composite character, a blend of several heroes, combined into one unforgettable figure. Surprisingly, both possibilities remain plausible. That uncertainty is what makes the mystery so powerful. No theory completely solves it. No theory completely destroys it. Then there is the famous Battle of Badon, Many historians consider it important. Some believe Arthur may have led forces there. If he existed, this battle could explain his fame. According to later accounts, the defenders achieved a remarkable victory. The advance of invading Saxons slowed. Britain gained precious time. Hope briefly returned. Victories like that create legends. People remember those who saved them. Communities celebrate heroes. Stories preserve their names. And when enough generations repeat a story, something remarkable happens. The facts begin to shine brighter, then larger, then almost supernatural. A brave commander becomes a king. A king becomes a chosen ruler. A chosen ruler becomes a legend. And a legend becomes immortal. That transformation may explain Arthur better than any single document. History gave the world a warrior. Imagination gave the world a myth. Together they created Arthur, but the mystery grows even stranger. Many locations across Britain claim connections to Arthur. Castles, hills, ancient ruins. Visit one region and they will tell you Arthur slept there. Travel elsewhere and they will claim Arthur fought there. Another village insists Arthur was born nearby. The stories never seem to end. This widespread presence reveals something fascinating. Arthur belongs everywhere and nowhere at the same time. His legend spread beyond geography, beyond history itself. Then there is Camelot, perhaps the most famous court in medieval storytelling. A place of honor, justice, and loyalty. A place many dream existed, yet archaeologists have never confirmed Camelot's location. Numerous sites have been proposed. None have been proven. The mystery remains intact, and perhaps that is fitting. A legendary king deserves a legendary kingdom, one forever sought, one never fully found. As centuries passed, Arthur became more than a historical question. He became a cultural symbol, a model of leadership, a symbol of hope. Writers expanded his adventures. Poets added romance and tragedy. Storytellers introduced quests and magic. The legend grew richer. Each generation reinvented Arthur. Each era saw something different in him. A warrior, a king, a dream. And through it all, one mystery survived untouched. Was there ever a real man behind the legend? Or was the legend itself the only reality? The answer remains hidden in the shadows of history. By the Middle Ages, Arthur had become more than a possible historical figure. He had become an obsession. Kings admired him. Writers celebrated him. Entire nations embraced his legend. Medieval rulers loved associating themselves with Arthur. If Arthur represented the perfect king, then claiming his legacy brought prestige. His name carried power. His story inspired loyalty. His legend strengthened authority. Suddenly, Arthur was everywhere. His image appeared in literature, art, and royal courts. The legend expanded beyond Britain. It crossed borders. It captured imaginations across Europe. One writer added a new detail. Another introduced a new adventure. A third created new characters. Each contribution made the legend larger and farther from historical certainty. This is where Sir Lancelot enters the story. The noble knight became one of Arthur's most famous companions. Brave in battle, respected by all, yet carrying dangerous secrets. Because even legends need conflict. And Arthur's kingdom was no exception. Beneath the glory of Camelot, cracks slowly appeared. Small at first, then impossible to ignore. Lancelot and Queen Guinevere became central to that tragedy. Their relationship created tension inside the kingdom. Trust began to weaken. Unity began to fracture. The perfect kingdom no longer seemed perfect. The story became deeply human. No monsters were needed. No invading armies were required. The greatest threat came from within, from the hearts of people. Perhaps that is why audiences connected so strongly with Arthur's tale. It was not only about heroism, it was about weakness, loyalty, betrayal. Camelot represented an ideal world, a place where justice prevailed, where courage mattered, where noble leaders guided society. But ideals are fragile. History repeatedly teaches the same lesson. Building something great is difficult. Keeping it great is even harder. Camelot's downfall reflected that truth, a truth still relevant today. Then came Mordred, one of the most mysterious figures in Arthurian legend, sometimes portrayed as Arthur's son, sometimes as his nephew, always associated with betrayal. Mordred represents a recurring theme in history, the danger that rises from inside a system, the enemy already within the walls, the challenge nobody expects, the threat closest to home. As tensions increased, the kingdom moved toward disaster. Friendships broke apart. Trust disappeared. Conflicts escalated. The future darkened. Eventually, Arthur and Mordred met in battle. The confrontation would become one of the most famous moments in legend. A final struggle. A tragic ending. A kingdom at the edge of collapse. According to the stories, both sides suffered devastating losses. Victory no longer mattered. The damage was too severe. The dream of Camelot was dying, and everyone knew it. Then came the moment that changed everything. Arthur struck Mordred. Mordred struck Arthur. Both were mortally wounded. Both fell. The scene became legendary, not because of who won, but because nobody truly did. The battle destroyed the very thing they were fighting for. Camelot itself. This is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Arthur does not simply die in many versions of the legend. Instead, he is taken away, transported to Avalon, a mysterious island shrouded in myth. Avalon is one of Arthurian legend's greatest mysteries, a place between reality and fantasy, a place of healing, a place of waiting, a place beyond certainty. According to the legend, Arthur will return someday, when Britain needs him most, when darkness threatens the land, when hope seems lost, the king will come back. That promise transformed Arthur forever. He was no longer merely a ruler. He became a symbol, a sleeping hero, a future possibility. Very few historical figures receive that kind of ending. Most rulers are remembered for what they accomplished. Arthur became remembered for what he might still do. That difference is extraordinary and deeply revealing, because by now the question is no longer just whether Arthur existed. The question has become something larger. Why has the world refused to let him disappear? Why does the legend endure? The answer lies deeper than history. Perhaps the reason Arthur survives is not because of evidence. Perhaps it is because of what he represents. Every generation searches for heroes. Every society longs for great leaders. Arthur became the embodiment of that desire. Think about it. History is filled with powerful rulers, yet very few remain alive in the public imagination for over 1,000 years. Most become names in textbooks. Arthur became something more. He became a symbol of hope, a reminder that courage can exist during chaos, that leadership can emerge during crisis, that unity can overcome division, ideas people never stop needing. This may explain why Arthur's story appears in so many forms: books, films, television series, video games, and modern retellings. Each version changes details. Some focus on magic, others emphasize warfare, some explore romance, others highlight political struggles. Yet one element remains consistent. Arthur stands at the center, a figure people continue returning to, a mystery people continue exploring, a legend people refuse to forget. The remarkable thing is that uncertainty actually strengthens the legend. If historians discovered undeniable proof tomorrow, some mystery would disappear. Questions would be answered. Debates would end. Part of the magic might vanish. Mysteries possess unusual power. They invite participation. People become investigators. They compare theories. They imagine possibilities. Arthur is one of history's greatest mysteries, not because there is no evidence, but because there is just enough evidence to keep searching, just enough to sustain hope, just enough to keep wondering. Some archaeologists study ancient fortresses. Others examine medieval manuscripts. Researchers compare texts and historical records. Everyone seeks the same thing: a glimpse of the truth. And occasionally, exciting discoveries appear. A forgotten inscription, an ancient ruin, a newly interpreted document. Each discovery sparks fresh speculation. Headlines appear claiming Arthur has been found. Excitement spreads. People become curious again. Then caution follows. The mystery survives another day. What makes this story unusual is that uncertainty has become part of its identity. Arthur is not famous despite the mystery. He is famous because of it. The unanswered questions fuel the legend. The uncertainty keeps it alive. Imagine if Camelot were discovered tomorrow. Imagine if Excalibur were proven real. Imagine if Arthur's tomb were identified beyond doubt. History would celebrate, but the mystery would end. And perhaps people do not truly want the mystery to end. Legends give imagination room to breathe. They allow possibilities. They invite wonder. They inspire curiosity. That is why Arthur belongs to both history and mythology. One foot stands in reality. The other stands in legend. Neither side fully claims him. Neither side fully releases him. Historians search for facts. Storytellers search for meaning. Arthur somehow satisfies both groups. He offers evidence to investigate and symbols to interpret. This balance is rare. Most historical figures remain historical. Most fictional characters remain fictional. Arthur exists in the space between, a place few others occupy. The longer the mystery survives, the stronger it becomes. Every century adds new layers. New theories emerge. New interpretations develop. The legend evolves. People living in the Middle Ages saw Arthur differently than people today. Future generations may see him differently again. The story adapts. The mystery persists. The fascination continues. And maybe that adaptability is the secret. Arthur survives because he changes. He reflects the hopes of each generation. He becomes whatever people need him to be. A warrior, a king, a dream. But beneath every version lies the same question. Was there once a real man standing behind the myth? A forgotten leader whose story grew larger over time? A warrior transformed into a legend? The possibility remains. And as long as that possibility remains, the search continues. Researchers keep investigating. Writers keep imagining. Audiences keep wondering. Arthur keeps living. Because some mysteries are not solved by answers. Some mysteries survive because people never stop asking questions. And King Arthur may be the greatest example of all. A legend sustained by uncertainty. A king crowned by mystery. Now we arrive at the most important question of all. What if we have been asking the wrong question this entire time? What if the mystery is not whether Arthur existed? What if the real mystery is why his story never dies? That question may be even more fascinating. For centuries, people searched for Arthur's kingdom, his battlefield, his sword, his tomb. But perhaps they were searching in the wrong places. Because Arthur's greatest legacy may not be buried underground. It may not be hidden in ancient ruins. It may not exist in forgotten manuscripts. It may exist in human imagination itself. A place no archaeologist can excavate. Think about how many empires have vanished. How many kings have been forgotten. How many rulers once seemed unstoppable. Time erased their achievements. History moved on. Yet Arthur remains. Not because he conquered the largest territory. Not because he built the greatest empire. Not because historians can prove every detail. But because people continue telling his story. Stories possess a strange kind of immortality. They survive wars. They survive disasters. They survive centuries. Sometimes they survive reality itself. And perhaps that is Arthur's greatest victory. Not winning battles, not ruling a kingdom, but refusing to disappear, refusing to be forgotten. This is where the legend becomes surprisingly human. Arthur may represent something buried inside all of us. The desire to believe that heroes can exist, that noble leaders are possible, that hope can survive difficult times. Whether we live in ancient Britain or the modern world, that desire remains. People still search for courage, still search for justice, still search for leaders worth following. The need never truly fades. And that need keeps Arthur alive. Each generation discovers the story again. Each generation interprets it differently. Each generation finds meaning within it. The legend renews itself. But now comes the twist. The deeper historians investigate Arthur, the less certain they become. And strangely, that uncertainty may be the strongest evidence of all. Not evidence that Arthur existed. Evidence that something extraordinary happened. Legends rarely emerge from complete nothingness. They usually begin with a spark, a real event, a real person, a real memory that grows over time. Perhaps Arthur was a warrior whose victories inspired generations. Perhaps he united people during chaos. Perhaps his achievements became larger with every retelling, until history and mythology became inseparable, until the truth wore the mask of legend. Or perhaps Arthur never existed at all. Perhaps he was created from many heroes, a symbol assembled from countless stories, a fictional king representing real hopes, a myth stronger than reality. And here is the fascinating part. Both possibilities lead to the same destination. Whether Arthur was one man or many, his story shaped cultures, inspired generations, and influenced history itself. In that sense, Arthur became real regardless of the answer. His influence exists. His impact exists. His legacy exists. Those facts cannot be denied. 1,000 years after his supposed lifetime, people still discuss him, still debate him, still write about him, still search for him. Very few kings achieve that. Most rulers fight to control their own century. Arthur conquered centuries he never lived to see. His kingdom may have vanished, but his legend expanded beyond time. That is a different kind of power. Perhaps that is why the story of Avalon matters so much. Not because people literally expect Arthur to return, but because the idea represents hope. The belief that greatness can reappear. The belief that heroes are never completely gone. Avalon is more than a mythical island. It is a promise hidden inside the legend. A promise that courage can return. That leadership can return. That hope can return. And maybe every generation creates its own version of Arthur. Its own hero. Its own symbol. Its own reminder that difficult times can be overcome. That possibility never disappears. So is King Arthur real? The honest answer is that nobody knows for certain. The evidence remains incomplete. The mystery remains unsolved. And perhaps it always will. But maybe certainty was never the point. Maybe the true power of Arthur lies in the question itself. A question that has survived for centuries. A question that keeps people searching. A question that keeps the legend alive. And so somewhere between history and myth, between fact and imagination, King Arthur still sits upon his throne, not as a proven king, not as a forgotten man, but as one of the greatest mysteries ever told, a legend that refuses to die.